Okay, so here's what 1MinuteMan has to say. Ready? He says, just a suggestion. Now that you're 100 hours into Baldur's Gate 3, maybe around 40% of that was you walking, talking, exploring, doing minor side quests, and minor combat. If you had played this off the clock a few hours a week, uploaded that to your YouTube channel, and encouraged people to watch these videos before the stream, then you focused only on major story elements in the stream, you could be in the real endgame now. I know that if you owned a restaurant, you wouldn't want to have to make sandwiches off the clock, but sometimes sacrifices have to be made, like with Will. Now, you can say, here's the thing, all right? Well, 1MinuteMan, here's the thing. Okay? First of all, what you're suggesting actually works perfectly for someone who's not a live streamer. Just being honest, yeah, if I wasn't a live streamer, that's the kind of stuff that I used to do all the time, actually. Before I was a live streamer and everything was live broadcast to the world, I would always play games off the clock because everything was off the clock. Everything was just an on-demand video. And sometimes I would not upload absolutely everything, or I would streamline because I knew kind of what was coming in a game or something like that. When I first started as a live streamer, I actually sometimes would play off the clock. I'll give you an example. Games like Dark Souls or Demon Souls, what I would actually do is grind off camera because people didn't want to see me grind in the game. They felt like that was boring, so I would grind off camera, and then I would come back many levels higher to basically take on the story, right? That way I could steamroll the story and not have to worry about, oh, I'm under-leveled for it, and I have to go repetitively grind to level up more to take on the rest of the story, right? However, people hated that. No exaggeration, people absolutely rallied against it. Why are you grinding off camera? Why are you playing the game off camera? Now the playthrough is not legitimate because your honest first-time experience was ruined because you were just running off camera and basically doing this stuff and we didn't get to see it, and therefore it's not legit. Seriously, that is the actual criticism I got when I was doing stuff off camera back in the day. So it just became, all right, so my first time playthroughs will be 100% honest. We're not going to do anything off camera. We're not going to skip anything. It's just going to be everything you see is what you get. So that way when you're watching my streams, that's my honest first time experience with the game with no exception. And that's how we've treated it for many, 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 many years. And that's what people wanted, all right? What you're suggesting would be, for example, if I was someone who, how can I say? If I was someone who was not a full-time streamer, but instead was a YouTuber who edited all their content, correct? Streamlined their playthrough, correct? Then, you're right, and I'm sure a lot of people did that too. I'm sure a lot of people have done that. They took a playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, and instead of it being a raw 100-hour playthrough, they edited that down to 40 hours of the major story. And there's a lot of other side stuff, and they're like, well, if you want to see that, maybe I'll release that later, or I'll do a side quest side series where you can see that, but the main plot points you can see here, right? And I understand that that might be more digestible for a certain kind of audience, but I'm a full-time live streamer. I'm not that kind of a YouTuber. I don't sit there editing videos offline. I don't, you know what I'm saying? A lot of YouTubers actually edit out fails. They edit out things that they feel are boring in their playthroughs, right? You know, you'll be traveling across a map. It's like, well, that's boring. Nothing happened. Just edit out 5 minutes. They'll do that. I'm the raw gameplay guy. Like I've always have been. And again, I was very strongly criticized around the times when I was not just the raw gameplay guy, that I'm leaving out stuff. In the case of your specific suggestions, all right, you're saying play the game off camera, right? But then be sure to stream the story. I can't do that. Why? Because I don't know what's the story and I don't know what's not. I've never played the game before. Remember, I'm not sitting here with a guide or strategy or anything. Everywhere I'm going, I'm just walking around and exploring genuinely, correct? And I will maybe discover a major story element. Like yesterday, when I went into Worm Fortress or whatever, I did run into major story elements, but I also ran into a bunch of side quests, right? Like it was a combination of factors there. I didn't know what I was going to find in there. I had no idea. So, unless I'm spoiling myself on this content, there's absolutely no way that I would know only stream these parts and leave the other parts for off stream and then later on upload or separately edit. You know what I'm saying? Like, the raw live streams, that way you don't miss anything, right? Everything is always broadcast to the people watching, and you can't miss anything out. Now, you're right. That also creates bloated content, because every piece of side content, every piece of exploration, every piece of that experience is shown publicly, and it could make the playthrough much longer. But I think a lot of people like that about my playthroughs. When they watch it, they say, okay, if this is my honest first time playing the game, this is what it's like. You know how many people over the years have said they really enjoyed a playthrough of mine because they've played the game, but they're a fan of the series. They know all about it, correct? Well, me, I'm an outsider, right? I went into Baldur's Gate 3 knowing nothing about D&D, knowing nothing about what the game was going to play like outside of the combat that I did in Divinity 2. But outside of that, it was all fresh and new. So now to see an outsider play this is fun, because you're seeing that first-time honest experience to everything, to the story elements, to the side content, to the traversal, to the exploration, to all the things, right? I'm sure a lot of people get laughs when I walk into a room full of poison, and I freak out because it goes into turn-based mode, which I absolutely hate turn-based mode out of combat. I don't ever want to use it, and I'm freaking out that the AI won't follow me and stuff like that. People get a kick out of that, right? But that's my honest reaction, and people are like, haha, see, here's a newbie getting owned by these mechanics that we're a pro at, and we just coast through that, and it's fun to see him fail at that, right? So that's what I mean. Like, that's what a lot of people come to my content for. I totally understand the kind of content you're suggesting. You're more hands-on, more edited, more curated, more, you know, let's streamline. There's tons of content creators that do that. They're not full-time live streamers. Full-time live streamers won't do that. Or the content creator themselves is the full-time live streamer, but they're rich because they're giant content creators, and they hire a whole editing team. And so the editing team will take their content and clip it up, chop it up, and say, okay, here's the streamlined story playthrough, here's the side stuff, here's this, and they do that for them because they get paid to do it. I don't have that, right? I don't. Already I got people working their butts off to make stuff for the Throwback channel, and that's just minimal editing work. I don't have a crack team of 30 people who can all sit down and start editing and chopping up and doing. Because it's funny, because people suggest this all the time. Why don't you have someone sit there and watch your podcast and chop that podcast up into clips? Like when you did your reaction to the Dark Souls, I keep saying Dark Souls. When you did a reaction to the Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, why didn't you have someone clip that out as an edited clip and post that up as a separate video? Because I don't have people to do that. I can't pay employees. My money has to go to basic stuff. I'm not a filthy rich dude like these other content creators you're thinking about. I'm not. It's hilarious how I always get held up to them. Like, here's someone who's only 10 times bigger than me. Literally, he's probably a millionaire. And they have a team of editors to do this for that. I can't do that. You know, I'm a one-man show. I always have been. I do get help now, which is nice. That there's some people who have stepped up and said, look, we always wanted to see this Throwback stuff. Let's help you with it. Let's do it. And I'm like, thank you so much for that. But I can't hire a team of editors to make this style of content. I just can't. Listen, if I had that, maybe things would be different, right? But I can't. You know? I can't. So it is what it is. In a perfect world, first of all, I love being a live streamer. I would always want my streams to be the raw stuff. I wouldn't want to have my stream be, oh, we're saved this special part of the story just for this stream, and that's all we're doing today on stream. I think that's silly. I like genuinely exploring and enjoying games with my audience. I don't want to have a different kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, Sith, just stop. He goes, oh, YouTubers your size have an editor. Then they don't pay them. I'll just tell you, like, listen, I have no sponsors. I have no product placements. I have none of that extra income. Literally, my income is ad revenue on YouTube, membership revenue on YouTube that doesn't even exist anymore because of the fake memberships. Okay? Super chats on YouTube and the tips that come in. All right? That's it. I don't have all this other income that maybe these other YouTubers have. I don't know how to explain it to you any more matter-of-factly. Okay? There's no one of my stature bringing in a few hundred views a video who's then paying an editor. That's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard in my life. You don't know what you're talking about. If you think someone who brings in less than 1,000 views on a stream and a few hundred views per video on YouTube is paying an editor, You are very misinformed. Okay? Very, very misinformed. That could be true. Someone just said, perhaps some of these people are doing it for resume experience. You may be right. Maybe that's the case. Maybe some people are coming in and saying, you know, if I can say that I was an editor for a YouTuber for a year or two, and then I can actually go off to do this kind of work for a company because I have experience that I can show. Maybe that's what it is. But I'm telling you right now, I cannot afford to pay someone a paycheck to edit my videos. I just can't. You know, right now, like I told you, things right now are very, very tight for me personally, just as is, because of this stuff going on with these memberships and stuff. Right now, I'm barely to the point where I'm getting by, I'm making it, but it's so tight. How the hell am I supposed to afford to pay an editor to do this stuff? It's never going to happen. Okay. So, back to OneMinuteMan's point. I agree with what OneMinuteMan is saying, okay? I think that what OneMinuteMan is saying would actually work for a certain audience. There would actually be people who would prefer a more streamlined playthrough. A 40-hour Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough that just covers the major plot points. And if you want to see side questing or whatever, you could go tune into it in a separate playlist or a separate project or whatever it may be. But that's not the kind of YouTuber I am. I'm a full-time live streaming YouTuber. The vast majority of income I make is from live streams. If I didn't live stream all the time and I just relied on edited content on YouTube, I would not make a living. YouTube has changed so much in the last 7 to 10 years. Ad revenue plummeting, all these things changing. It wouldn't be viable, you know? The streams are my lifeblood. People like that honest first-time experience of me playing a game. If I were to change that and change the kind of creator I am, that would basically really screw up the way that I make content and the way that right now I'm actually making my living. So I don't think it would work short term. Maybe long term if it was a big transition. But again, that's not something I can do. That would have to be like some professional editors get involved, which I just cannot do. Okay?